Good morning, everyone. This is John Heerdink, and welcome to our Tribe Public CEO presentation titled today, Turning EOE into a Once-a-Year Appointment, which will be co-hosted by James A. Helliwell, M.D., CEO of Eupraxia Pharmaceuticals, which trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol EPRX. Eupraxia is a clinical stage biotechnology company focused on the development of locally developed, delivered extended release products that have the potential to address therapeutic areas with high unmet medical need. Company strives to provide improved patient benefit and has developed technology designed to deliver targeted, long-lasting activity with fewer side effects. As many of you know, I'm the managing member of Tribe Public. Our website is www.tribepublic.com. That's TRIBE public.com. Members from 31 plus countries and all 50 states have joined Tribe Public freely to gain direct corporate access to leaders and experts that they care about via our webinar events like today and via 41 venue sites located across the US where we host in-person luncheon, dinner, and speaking engagements with local tribe members with many of these experts. Tribe members, furthermore, are invited to submit names of experts and leaders of industry via our wish list process at our website, adding names of companies, subjects that span across all sectors so that they can learn more. Please note that I am also the managing director of Vista Partners, LLC, a registered investment advisor in California, and its website is Vista P Global. That's VISTAP global.com. Please review both sets of disclaimers at each site and know that I'm currently a shareholder and advisor to Eupraxia Pharmaceuticals. I would also like to thank you all for participating and for all your questions you have submitted, and remind all that they may send in more questions via the Zoom chat feature during this event. This will be approximately 30 minutes. We got a hard stop today at 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern. A video of this event will be published at our Tribe Public YouTube channel and sent out to all post this event via the Tribe This Week, our weekly e-newsletter that goes out at the end of each week, usually Friday. Now let's get started. Hi, James. Could you please tell us, just start with a little bit of background about yourself for those that haven't joined before, and then go into your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, John, for having me, and to all the tribe members, those I've met, wonderful to see you again. For those I haven't, thank you very much for joining. So, as John said, I'm a physician by background, so I'm a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist. So I spent my career really doing heart surgery with a focus on heart transplantation and also critical care. And that really led to the foundation of this company. And we're going to talk more about this and some of the things that we have done as we go through the story today. I will, just as John did, point out our forward-looking statements feature here before we get going. I'm going to start today by actually focusing on the disease first, and then going to tell you a little bit about how we tackle this disease. So eosinophilic esophagitis. It is a mouthful of a word, so most people call it EOE. EOE is a really interesting disease. When I went through medical school, which was a little while ago, this was not a disease. We did not talk about this. We did not know this. But we would have patients who would show up in the emergency room who had food stuck in their esophagus. It's called a food impaction. And then we would actually have to go down with a scope and actually remove that food. And we didn't know exactly what the problem was. You'd rule out cancer, but you didn't know. Now, what we recognize is that so many patients who have difficulty swallowing, who have pain on swallowing, who are very often misdiagnosed as having reflux disease, in fact, have a whole bunch of eosinophils, which are a special type of white blood cell, indicating an inflammatory allergic type reaction in their esophagus. This then creates inflammation, which creates symptoms. It also, with that inflammation, then creates fibrosis or scar tissue. Now, that scar tissue turns your soft and thin distensible esophagus into a smaller, tight lead pipe, which means food's harder to get down and food will get stuck. This is a really devastating disease. I talk to people every week whether they are investors or whether they are analysts, the remarkable number of them who were also EOE patients. So we think of this as a rare disease. In fact, it's really not a rare disease. The FDA considered this an orphan disease. In 2020, they still were handing out orphan drug designations for this disease. However, that has changed very dramatically in just a few years. An orphan disease means you have fewer than 200,000 patients in the United States. Well, now the estimates are, and there's a variety of different sources for this, are that there are between around 700,000 patients to 1 million patients today with EOE in the United States. Now, we've all heard of Crohn's disease. Even if you haven't heard of EOE, there's about the same number of EOE patients as Crohn patients now. So this is a really big disease with a huge unmet need. And so what we look is to be able to, we'll be talking today about the disease and our approach and therapy to it. Now, this next slide I'm going to put up here, don't hate me for it. There's no test on this. This is a complex slide. The reason this slide is here is to show you how complex this disease is. There are a whole bunch of reactions that are happening inside the wall of the esophagus. And the approach that people have taken is to target just a single receptor in here. And the problem is when they do that, they don't stop the whole process. So they may reduce the eosinophils, those inflammatory cells, and they may reduce those, but that's not actually making patients feel better. So we have seen failures from a variety of companies, from people like Pfizer and BMS Celgene, who terminated their programs because they could not make patients feel better to the degree that they needed to. Dupixent, which is, you may know the TV ads for that. It's the dupilumab you see at the bottom. It's been really a game changer in this disease with for most adult patients, a once-a-week injection. Has really changed the game. But as you can see, it's because it's hitting several areas here. Steroids, and that's what we're delivering, is a steroid called fluticasone that is known to work in this disease when taken orally. And we are going to be delivering it actually inside the esophageal wall. Steroids hit everything you see in the screen here. So then we're not relying on just hitting one thing, but actually hitting everything. Now, oral steroids have been the mainstay of treatment in these patients for quite a long time since the diagnosis. The problem is, and when you talk to patients, it's worse than it even sounds. You have to basically take a slurry, so this paste that you swallow. After you swallow it, the ideal is you actually lay down for a little while. But if you don't do that, even then you need to not eat or drink for a couple of hours, and you need to do that twice a day. If you do that flawlessly, the drug actually works quite well. However, you will also get a fungal infection in the mouth and in the throat. And that will occur. The approved drug that is on the market to do this, they have a 25% oropharyngeal candidiasis rate. So that's that fungal infection. In the literature, you'll see rates as high as 50%. So that means people just stop taking it because they get this awful infection. It's very inconvenient. So what's our approach? What makes it different? Well, we are taking an existing drug, fluticasone propionate. You may know it as Flovent. And so millions of people take this drug for lung conditions every single day. We know that it works off-label in this disease. And so what we've done is our technology, which is called the DiffuSphere technology, which we created in-house and have 5 broad patent families with extensive coverage worldwide on this. We basically package fluticasone in a novel way inside these little things that are about the size of a grain of sand. When patients have this disease, they go almost always at least once a year. So the guidelines say you should go once a year for an endoscopy. So it's going down with the camera. They take biopsies and they watch the progression of the disease. While they're there, a very easy procedure for gastroenterologists to do that they do all the time is to actually inject the tissues of the esophagus. Now, they will do that for esophageal spasm with Botox, and they do with other drugs as well, including some steroids that are much shorter acting. With this, what we're saying is while you're there, deliver these injections, which patients can't feel. They can't feel the biopsies. They can't feel the injections, and actually put it inside the wall. And so if you think about it, what are we doing? We are taking a drug that we know works. We know its safety profile. We're putting it in the place where the disease is and not where the disease isn't, and trying to give it for a long period of time to get good results for patients. So let's talk a little bit about what this looks like from a data perspective. So our trial that's ongoing right now is called the Resolve trial. It's two parts. The first part is this phase 2A trial. So this is really exploring how many injections do you need and how much drug do you need per injection site. This is the data we're going to show you today. What we're looking at here is safety, the pharmacokinetics, so how is that drug actually delivering in the body, and then also patient symptoms measured by something called the Straumann Dysphagia Index. Histology, so this is actually taking bites of tissue, looking at it under the microscope and grading its severity for this disease. And so we're going to walk through this data so you can get a picture of what's developing. So these are different groups or patient cohorts that we have that are coming forward here. So this is measuring the drug levels actually in the system, so in the plasma, not in the esophagus. So this is like a cumulative measurement of everything that you are giving. What's interesting is that we know from the work that we have done previously that the levels in the tissue are 2 to 3 orders of magnitude greater than what shows up in the system. Again, this is all about local tissue delivery, not getting it throughout the rest of the body. And instead, what you're seeing here is the very small amount that gets to the rest of the body, but you're seeing the delivery stability. This is from one injection given at time 0. There's about a 24 to 48 hour equilibration period at the beginning, and then you can see those flat lines. And in patients who have reached a year, the others are going to get there. So we will have that data through the rest of this year, is out to 52 weeks. It is a flat line to 52 weeks. All of it with levels that for almost all of the time, other than a couple hours, are below the level of those millions of people who take that inhaled fluticasone daily, really meaning it's conferring safety. So that means we're delivering the drug, we're delivering it for a very long period of time from a single injection. Now let's talk a little bit about how patients are actually doing. So what we know is the SDI, the Straumann Dysphagia Index, measures how you're doing and also defines clinical remission. So clinical remission is basically you're doing up to a three-point improvement or better. And that really means you're in a place where you're really not affected by this disease from a symptomatic perspective anymore. Now, there are other drugs that are out there that show different levels of response here. The best response that's really out there is showing about a 39 to 40% clinical remission rate. And so that's really where the patient expectation is. And to level set for you, what are good results here? We're going to be reporting at the end of this year, phase 2B trial. So that's the randomized controlled trial. It's going to be using the top 2 doses from this trial. So when we think about that, what is it that's the measurement? So we've talked to patients extensively, physicians extensively, and also payers. And what's really important for them is that we're basically as good as the standard treatments out there today. And so that means getting that roughly 40% clinical remission rate. It means also seeing an improvement in tissue, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the big thing is lasting between 9 and 12 months. Why? Imagine you're a patient who's having to do twice daily oral medications or a once weekly injection, being able to just time together, being able to go once a year. That would be really meaningful for patients, for physicians, for payers. And so that's what's defining success. So when we look here, what we see is at 2 weeks, 40% of our patients are in clinical remission. By 12 weeks, 60% of our patients are in clinical remission. And by 24 weeks, we have almost 80% of patients in clinical remission. And then holding kind of from that point out to about the 1 year mark, where we have closer to 70% clinical remission, all the way to 1 year. Now, these are not huge numbers, and as you can see, we still have patients to reach those final time points. So there aren't dropouts in this. That's not why the number changes. The number changes because they just haven't reached that time point yet. So that data is going to be coming more in Q2, Q3, and Q4 of this year before this trial is considered fully wrapped. There is also another thing that's happening here that explains a bit of why patients are actually responding so well. Here, what you can see is the doses that we give. And so there's a variety of different doses here. The two I really want to focus on are the orange and the green. Those are the two doses that are in this phase 2b study. So the phase 2b study is taking the two highest doses. So it's 6 or 8 milligrams per injection site times 20 injection sites. Now, this is a fast procedure. This is taking experienced physicians 5, 6, 7 minutes. So it's not adding much time. The EOE HSS is measuring on biopsy, so this isn't something that's affected by placebo, and it's measuring inflammation. It's also measuring fibrosis or scar tissue, so it's a structural score. What you can see here is that we are seeing on a 1-point scale. With the red, that is about the level that really the best therapy is doing today. And so that is a really good response. It means that you are making patients really reduce their inflammation, and you're holding the progression of the fibrosis. That would be a fantastic result for a product that lasted a year. When we go higher in dose, so up 50% and up 100% with the orange and the green, you see that response becomes even more pronounced. We are seeing around a 60% improvement with the orange there by week 12. And in the green, that is a 97% and 94% improvement in stage and grade. So that means you're improving inflammation and you're improving fibrosis. So why do we have patients go from 40% at 2 weeks to close to 80 at 6 months? We believe this is why, because we're actually making a change to the scar tissue that is happening inside the esophagus. In addition to that, we are also seeing a change in these eosinophils. So we are reducing the number of eosinophils in a very dramatic way as counted on biopsy. And again, this is not actually correlated to clinical outcome, but does tell us that our drug is present, just as we're seeing with the clinical remission rate and we're seeing with the EOHSS, that it seems to be making a really strong improvement. And again, measuring that durability all the way out on biopsy to 9 months and the clinical efficacy to 12. Another really important feature for this is safety. We want the fewest side effects possible, and there seems to be a strong safety signal that's coming through in this first trial. We now have 220 months of patient follow-up. There have been no drug-related serious adverse reactions in this trial. In other words, patients are responding well from a safety perspective. We talked about that fungal infection so common with steroids. We have had 0 patients with that oral and throat candidiasis, so that oropharyngeal fungal infection. 0 patients. We've also had no change in the body's natural steroid cortisol or blood sugar, including in diabetic patients. So what we hope this is really representing is really strong efficacy signals, both from a clinical perspective, from a histologic perspective, but then also from a safety perspective. And again, that durability to a year. So how do we sort of really start to prove this out? This is starting to become fairly clear for a lot of people. We hear a lot of physicians say, we get it. We know this drug works in this disease. You're clearly delivering the drug to the right place. This is not a shocking result for us. Well, the best way to test this is in a placebo-controlled trial. That trial, our phase 2b trial, is underway right now. We are expecting the top-line data in Q4 of this year. That top-line data will compare 40 placebo patients to 40 at 6 milligrams to 40 at 8 milligram injections per site. And basically, right at the 6 months, which is that top line data, we will then in Q4 have data on almost all of those patients to 6 months in terms of both how they're doing on histology, so the biopsy, as well as how they're doing from a clinical perspective. Are they reaching clinical remission? And we also are going to have some of those patients, because of the way recruitment goes, who will have been to 9 months and others who will already have reached a year. So we look forward to that data set as really being able to be confirmatory of what we have been seeing in this early data response. I'm going to just hand this over to questions in just a moment. I just want to make one quick commentary here about our market data. So as you can see here, a market capitalization is sort of in that $450 to $500 million range, depending on where we are day to day. Cash on hand at end of year was $80.5 million. Since that time, we had reverse inquiry that led an additional raise in February of 2026 of another $63 million. This is all from, US biotech institutional specialists who have really grounded that and institutionalized our shareholder base, very long-only players. In addition to that, we had a series of warrants that expired in mid-March that have generated additional bank balance. And we have a series of warrants that are deep in the money that are expiring April 19th. So you may notice some interesting dynamics with the stock. While we don't always know exactly what is going on, there's certainly, we believe, those warrants to be playing part of the activity right now. And again, they expire on April 19th and are deep in the money. So again, we expect more cash to come to the balance sheet. Overall, without even the warrant inclusion, this takes us to Q3 of 2028, is going to allow us to deliver the phase 2b data, have an end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA, and really get prepped to launch a single registrational phase 3 trial, which we believe we'll be able to do, in addition to launching 2 new indications in gastroenterology. The gastroenterologists are incredibly keen to be able to use this drug in other areas where they have inflammatory problems. So in other words, really underpinning what we hope to be a GI franchise to be able to really help patients with EOE and with other diseases and give options to patients, to physicians, and to payers as well. So with that, John, thank you very much. I'll stop speaking and open for questions.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it. Thanks for the update. There are a number of questions here. I'll start with the first one. It's what is the competitive landscape looking like in EOE, and is there much change in the last year or two?
Yeah, great question. So, the competitive landscape was actually quite crowded for a little while. When we launched this program, there were a variety of players there. There was a company called Alicos, Celldex, which has some fantastic products, was also trying to develop something in eosinophilic esophagitis, Pfizer, BMS, Celgene. All of those products have essentially failed. What they did is they did a very good job of the target they were chasing, whether it be eosinophils or mast cells. What it didn't do was make patients feel better. And in this, you have to improve patients and how they're feeling, but you also have to actually improve their histology. And so just like the data that we just walked through. So the competitive landscape, which is unfortunate for patients, is very narrow today. There really isn't a lot in development. So there's some programs that are beginning that are quite a bit behind us with sort of specific targets. But we think that we hope that we represent a real more near-term opportunity for patients.
Great. Speaking of patients, the number of patients being diagnosed with EOE has risen really dramatically in the last 5 years, I believe, as you mentioned. What is the cause of this, and does it affect the opportunity of EP104 GI?
Yeah, so this is really fascinating. This is one of those cases of, is the disease growing because more people are suddenly getting it? Like, is there something in the environment that is making people get this disease? Certainly, when we talk to the world leaders in this disease, they say absolutely there is something in the environment that is leading to more of this sort of inflammatory condition of the esophagus. But the primary driver that's driving really, really fast is the fact that people are recognizing this and they're seeing the disease. So they're looking for it. So many patients, and there's this amazing article in the New York Times called The Mystery of My Burning Esophagus. The poor person who wrote this spent 10 years bouncing from doctor to doctor, being diagnosed with reflux, with other things, only to eventually be diagnosed with EOE. And so that time to diagnosis is getting faster and faster as more and more physicians know about it. And also more and more patients know about it. So they know to bring it up and they get to the right physicians for the right diagnosis. In terms of market opportunity, absolutely. When you change your market from 200,000 patients to 1 million patients, it grows that opportunity for a therapeutic in a much, much greater way. And so we think that there's an incredible unmet need here that's growing by the day, and certainly something that we hope to be able to provide solutions for patients. And again, I'll say, I will go on calls, and people will tell me their children have this, their spouse has this, or they have this, and it's remarkable. It's also really motivating. You want to help them.
Absolutely. I can't tell you. It's daily. I have someone telling me when I bring up what you're working on here in EOE, and they say, "I think I got that," or "I think I know somebody that has that." It's the more I've gone deeper into Eupraxia over the last couple of years, it's just amazing how that's true. And as many of you know that are on this call, you've seen it at our events that are live and in person, and it is a pretty significant increase of folks that are aware, one, and two, that know someone that's been diagnosed
Yeah,
or should
it's
be.
interesting. It's what's interesting, John. It was actually at one of your events. Somebody came up to me after, described their symptoms, and said, "What should I do? This sounds like what you're talking about." And I sort of told them who to talk to and what to ask for. And then it turned out they had EOE. And so there's more education to do, and we're thrilled to do that, and would like to see people diagnosed so that they can begin their treatment.
For sure. Well, being that I promised you I'd get you off here at 8:30 and it's 8:29, so I'm gonna just start to sign off. Is there one last thing that you'd like to add, James, before I do that?
Yeah, I'll add one last thing, which is, look, we're thrilled with our EOE data. We really look forward to the phase 2B. We look forward to being able to expand into more areas of gastroenterology. We believe there's a real franchise there. But I'll take you back to the beginning of this talk. We're able to do this because of a delivery technology. That delivery technology that we created can work with many other drugs. And we're working on that in the background. We're doing it fairly quietly right now. But the opportunities for us to expand into other areas where you would want a hyper-localized delivery of a drug only into one place where the disease is and not to everywhere else, let your mind work a little bit on that, and I think you'll very quickly see what we see as the strong future of Eupraxia beyond GI, as we build the value in GI and beyond. And thank you, John, for hosting, and to everybody for being here today and sharing your precious time. It's deeply appreciated.
Again, thank you, James. One of the things that popped up right at the end is that folks are interested in how what the commercial strategy might look like. So maybe we have to table that for our next call, and then also, the questions that come up around your strong IP and how that would play out if someone comes by and appreciates what you have and wants to try to buy you out. So as we've seen at events, that's been a very common question as well. And one thing I'd mention here is that the growth of sales side analysts has blossomed here, and their current price targets are, I believe, from 11 to 19 currently, depending on the analyst. And it more seem to be coming to the table as they discover this huge opportunity in and around EOE alone, and then the expanding pipeline that you have based on this same technology. So maybe we'll table that for the next call. But I want to thank everyone. And I would encourage everyone, as you know, through the wish list process at the website, or just contact me directly at john@tribepublic.com, that you can request that James come possibly to your city. And if we could marry that with his current busy schedule across the country, maybe we can get him to meet you at one of our events. So please express yourself. And also, if you want him back on for another Tribe webinar event, please let us know that as well. Well, thanks again, James. Thanks to all
Yeah.
of Praxi and the hard work that you are continuing to do and push forward. And extremely proud to be involved with you and to be invested here. And I can't wait till you bring this to the market. So,
Okay. Thank you, John, and thank you to everybody. Take care.